Hey guys, Kev here, and I have a couple of knives to talk about from Notorious EDC. So, you guys may have seen my overview and disassembly on the Kingpin front flipper. I absolutely love this knife. This is a left-handed build, which is amazing that he did some lefties. He actually just dropped some bolster locks. And there's like Mars Valley, there's Purple Haze, I think there's some micarta, some really cool looking ones. I believe there's still some available. They're all right-handed, but very cool knife. Really excited that he came out with a bolster lock version. I would totally dig a bolster lock version of this. It's a great knife, so I highly recommend it. I don't want to go too deep into the front flipper because like I said, already have an overview and disassembly and everything, but I do just want to mention that it's fantastic, that it's available if you're interested, and yeah, it's just been a great carry. It has this beautiful clip that works extremely well in pocket. It's a slim, sleek design, so it's very minimal in terms of pocket space and stuff like that, yet you get a decent amount of blade length right there. You have a very nice thin hollow ground blade with a nice tip there. It's useful for, most utility cutting. You don't get a super low tip, but it's low enough that I can, cut into packages and stuff like that. I will say that is my one, not gripe, but sort of downside with this blade shape is it is a little bit harder for me to precisely get to like if I'm opening a package or something, I try to get to that seam in the middle where you got to slice that tape in the middle. And sometimes it's a little harder for me because my finger's so far away from the point. I don't choke up all the way up to here, where with something with the sheep's foot, I feel like I have a little bit more control, I guess. I don't know why. But I've just noticed when trying to get it into like an exact spot, I have to kind of, fiddle with it a little bit. But that's might be a personal thing, and it's a very minor downside, but absolutely wonderful. You can obviously do a reach around, which, I'm still learning because I'm left-handed and I'm not used to having left-handed knives, especially frame locks, which is why I mentioned a bolster lock would be cool, because I'm always on the lock bar when I go to do the reach around. So I'm still learning like where to put my fingers. I don't have big enough hands that putting it on the clip makes sense. So I have to kind of be over here on this side of the scale to do it, but I can, obviously. You would have a sort of rollback like that, where you just roll it over the top and you can pop it that way. And then of course my favorite is the front flip. It's got a really crisp pop to it, and if you put your finger on the lock bar, it gets even more snappy, which is nice. It's just a fun front flipper to play with. Lockup is excellent. No issues with lockup. It is solid in all directions. I have skiffs in here, but even with the stock bearings, it was good. Droppy action. Dead nut centering. Of course, you have Riot build. Look at that, getting better already. Really cool design pattern. It's just a really good knife, guys. I can't say enough good things about it. So check it out. Check out the bolster lock version on Notorious EDC. I'll link his website down below. Now, maybe my favorite, better than the frame lock even for me, I think would be the Slipjoint, guys. And you can check out my review of the original Slipjoint. This version has blown me away. So I am an absolute sucker for a belt satin. I do love a bolstered design, and I'm not a huge micarta guy, but I can take some black micarta with a belt satin any day. That used to be my go-to style back when micarta was hot. This is going to be that Ultrex style micarta that Riot uses. It's an American-made micarta. This knife has M390 steel on it, and it is a slip joint. And I absolutely love it. So again, it's very slim and sleek. Size-wise, if you've ever had or handled a Jack Wolf Feel-Good Jack, it's very similar overall in size. And I really like that because it makes it such a portable package. I mean, look at that. This slip was made for a, what was this slip for? I think this was made for a James brand Ellis Slim, the one without the scissors, just a blade. It was such a small knife, thin knife, and this fit perfectly in there. I mean, look at that. It even matches color-wise. Couldn't be more perfect. So I'm so glad I kept this slip around. Nothing would fit this slip after I got rid of that Ellis, gave it away, whatever. Nothing would fit in here. I've had this in my drawer for probably a year. Finally, something perfect came along. And I mean, it's literally made for it. It's fantastic. Just grab the tail there and pull it out. That's what she said. But I just want to show that's a Northwoods Leatherworks slip. Troy is absolutely wonderful. He doesn't do custom slips anymore, but he does do drops and stuff like that. So you could still bug him if you want. But I'm sure you could get a slip made by Duty's Daggers or find one available elsewhere. Maybe even Tom from Notorious has stuff on his website. I'm not sure. Which again, I'll link his website down below. Thank you to Tom for sending this stuff out to me. I do appreciate it. So ergonomically, this thing is a dream, guys. I mean, it's just perfect in the hand. Look at that. Melts into my large glove size hand. I agree with Tom. It's funny, actually. I think the first time I ever heard of Tom from Notorious EDC was when somebody sent me a link to like a podcast I think he did, or I don't even remember, honestly, how it came to be that I was listening to it, but it was years ago. And he was talking about pocket knives and that he really loves a sort of 3-inch or less size knife. Really sleek, small, slim, kind of gentlemanly like knife. And I could not agree more. I think this knife fits that mold almost perfectly. So, you know, he definitely designed a knife after his own, you know, preferences. And I think that's the way you should design knives. I do the same thing. So it really fits my hand perfectly. So I can tell we have very similar taste in that sense. Again, I talked about the blade shape. I wouldn't go personally and design something with a sort of clip point, spear point blade. You guys know I love Warnies and sheep's foot and whatnot. But because of the location of the tip, as you can tell, its pivot height, it's not like it's a clip point where it's like upswept or something like that. It doesn't have that rhino's horn or whatever on it. So it's still very usable in a utility situation. I talked about earlier trying to locate that tip to a specific point is a little bit difficult for me personally because from here, this is kind of where I reach out to here is a little bit of a distance. And I guess that's the reason why it's a little harder for me. It's not like a big deal. It's just something I noticed that, you know, if I'm holding my nip slip or something like that, I'm just like bang, right into that seam. With this, I'm kind of like finding the seam and then, you know, still works fantastically. And that's only one instance. If you're cutting through cardboard or something like that, this has a really good feel to it. Whether it is the front flipper version or the slip joint version. And that's what's really nice about having this combination. I mean, I guess there's something to be said for it could be a little bit dangerous having both because you're going to get used to locking in on a grip like this to cut with the bolster lock. And then when you go to grab the slip joint, you're going to put your finger here and possibly close it on yourself. But if you can practice common sense and whatnot, I think you'll be fine. I kind of treat most knives like a slip joint anyway and try to just make sure I'm not doing anything too dangerous. We have a really nice sharpening notch here. Really well done there. It does look like the plunge grind comes out possibly. It's really hard to tell, honestly, but it does look like it extends past the edge termination here to maybe like right there. So I'm not sure if that's just a shadow or what, but You guys let me know in the comments what you see there, sharpening wise, what it means. I'm not an expert on that. I think it looks great. I think it has a nice notch there. It also has a stop pin. This is a very cool story. I hope Tom doesn't mind if I share it. But when he designed this knife, he designed it with a little bit of a kick, right? So on a traditional slip joint, you have a kick, and that is what hits the spring down at the bottom, and it keeps the blade from contacting the spring. So pretend this is the inside and my hand is the blade. The blade comes down and it would hit the spring, right? And then that whole edge is gonna hit the spring and it's gonna damage the edge, obviously. So people came up with the kick, which is a little nub, that little guy right there, and that hits the spring first, and that way the blade kind of hits it, and then it keeps the blade up off of the spring so it doesn't hit, right? Does that make sense? But if you drive the blade, let's say you ride it down, instead of just letting the spring do the work, you're like jamming it closed or something, you could technically override that kick, and because the kick is hitting the spring can extend, and then you could bump it anyway. So anyway, that's how a kick works. So he put a little bit of a kick on here, but when Riot made the prototypes, they told him that it was wrapping. It was going to hit, it could possibly hit the spring down there and cause an issue in production. And that obviously is something you don't want to risk as a business owner. If you're making hundreds of these things and you're going to sell them to people, you really don't want to be like, well, it's possible that it could be fine, right? You want to fix that problem. So what Tom did was he talked to someone who I believe he sees as a mentor in designing and stuff like that, Enrique Pena. And we've heard the same thing from Ben over at Jack Wolf, that Enrique is a sort of mentor when it comes to slip joints. He's kind of the OG, right? You can also see that with Javi Garcia. He works closely with Pena, right? Jared Ogier, I'm not sure who came first there, but similar scenario in that sense. So you get my point. He asked Enrique about it, and Enrique helped him design a stop pin. So you see the stop pin in there. So now this knife actually has a kick and a stop pin. So if that kick fails, for whatever reason, you ride it, or maybe it just naturally, because you're making hundreds of these, the tolerances are good, but they can't all be the same. If any of them happen to fail on the kick, that stop pin is there and backs it up, right? Okay. Cool, Kev. Why'd you just tell that whole story? It has a freaking stop pin. I get it. Well, the cool thing about it is, and maybe some people who are nerdy enough have noticed already, the acoustics. It doesn't kill the acoustics. Listen. You hear that? It sounds great. Now, for an example, I'll use my own knife for it. This has a stop pin as well, designed with a stop pin from the beginning. Now listen. You hear that? Thud? That's what happens when you have a stop pin. Now, it's sort of a necessary evil, in my opinion, because we just don't want to risk it on a production knife to have a kick and have possible wrapping, you know? Now, otherwise, the acoustics are great, but you get that thud. This has that stop pin, but does not have that problem. So to me, it's like this amazing thing. I'm just really excited about it. So I just think that's a really cool story, and I thank Tom for sharing it with me, and hopefully he doesn't mind that I shared it with you. Now, the centering on this knife is damn near perfect. Possibly, dude, it's perfect. I mean, let me look at it in real. Yep, it's perfect. The spring, flush in the closed position, flush in the half stop, flush in the open. So you have flush in all three. Beautiful, just sleek design. It's just a really cool knife. I really was hoping it would stand out like this so I could get like a cool thumbnail or something, but it doesn't. It's almost flat, but it's not. You have a little lanyard hole back here, simple but yet functional. You will see the pivot is offset, so it's a little bit low. And you just, when you're putting these knives together, that's kind of what you have to do. You have to figure out where the pivot has to be located for your, blade tangs to hit at the right points, and the knife has to close. The blade can't hit the bottom. The tip obviously doesn't want to stick out. So all of that is going into where the pivot's located. So if you're ever wondering on some knives, and especially slip joints, why the pivot is where it is, why isn't it perfectly centered right there? And that's why, because, we have to make these little adjustments. You got to make compromises. So to me, I don't even notice it. It doesn't bother me or anything like that, but I want to point it out because some people will see it. I love the little flute here. Looks great. Everything is nice and clean. You got Riot quality here, obviously. Walk and talk is wonderful. The pull is not overly strong. I'd put it at maybe a 5. A 5 or 6. Let me grab. Yeah, very similar. I'd put it at a 6, I think. Like a 5.5, 6. This is the Urban EDC Barley. This is a design from us over at Divo Knives that Urban EDC did. Very cool. Riot did the OEM on it as well. That's why I was kind of comparing there. Size-wise, they're similar as well. You can see, obviously, completely different. A little bit more modern here with the finger choil. And then the little brother, sort of, the nip slip. There you go, size comparison-wise. Pretty much dead on with the Barley, maybe slightly smaller. And obviously quite a bit larger than the nip slip. And it is identical in size to the Kingpin front flipper. I really like that. He didn't make the front flipper bigger. 6.5 inches, almost dead on. Ever so slightly, maybe 6.6 inches overall. Blade length under 3 inches. You're looking at 2 3/4 there. Maybe a little bit less than that. 2 7/8, whatever. Very cool. Hollow ground blade, M390, thin stock, thin tip, very nice grind. Again, just a really good walk and talk and spring on it. You can one-hand it real easily on the close, which is fun. I always enjoy doing that on a knife, but it's satisfying on open. That's the one thing I always look for in a slip joint, is how satisfying is it to open and close, right? I'm a big walk and talk fan. And, I'll tell you, it's a 5.5, but it feels just as good to open and close as some knives I've had with a 7.5 or 8. I like a stronger pull, obviously. But it all depends on the, where you're gripping the knife. This has a long pull, fuller, whatever you want to call it. But you don't have like tons of area to grab. You have plenty. I'm not saying it's hard to grab. But what I'm saying is what you do have to grab is super thin because of the hollow grind and everything. And then because of that, it makes it feel like maybe a little bit of a stronger pull. I don't know how to explain that right. It just feels great is what I'm trying to get at. And you get that bounce that you're looking for. The little bounce and jiggle to the half stop. I love that. Good acoustics, like I said. Centering's great. I mean, dude, it's just a wonderful knife. And I think I do prefer it if you put a pew-pew to my head and made me pick, I'd go with the Slipjoint. But they're both absolutely phenomenal. Both are basically can't miss, in my opinion. So he did a great job on these. And I see why it's so popular. Yeah, got to give Tom props. And one other thing he sent me was a pouch. I'm not a huge pouch guy, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I am. But I did want to show it to you. I threw a couple of patches on it that I had laying around. I got rid of some, and I have other pouches with them on there. But it feels just as quality as my garage-built gear pouches that I use. I have a couple now that I use for like when I'm traveling to shows. I have all my disassembly stuff in one, and then I think I have one that has like extra tools like that, a multi-tool and stuff like that. But it's similar build. You have a pouch here, or a zip pouch there. It's made of Cordura brand fabric. You can see the Notorious tag there. I believe these are made overseas, and he has them sent in. He sells them on his website. You have another little zip pouch there, which I like. I don't think any of my other ones have a zip pouch on the inside. I do think that's cool, and I like that it's on the opposite side. You have a couple of little straps here and extra little straps so you can, you know, put stuff in. I had the knives in there, so I kind of slid them in and clipped them. And then this one I just put through one of these loops, you know. You can kind of put in there whatever you want. You get the idea. You have a couple here if you want to put like a pen or something. So he gave you plenty of options. It is one thing I like. And you also have, do you? I thought there was like a pocket too. So I guess I wouldn't have minded if there was like a pocket somewhere. By that, I mean like where you could get behind there and, you know, put some stuff instead of having to put it all in these elastic straps. But like I said, not a big pouch guy. I'll probably throw this into a giveaway in the future. But it's very cool. So you can get that on his website, which is NotoriouslyEDC.com, I believe. I'm going to pull it up here. Yep, NotoriouslyEDC.com. You can see he's got the Kingpin front flipper. Look at that one. OD green canvas micarta with bronze ano. That's really sick looking. 340 on that. This one's a double black linen micarta. 350 for this one. So it looks like the bolster locks are about $25 more than the full tie ones were, which makes sense because you're adding fat carbon and whatnot, which is going to add basically that 25 bucks. So he's essentially just adding the cost of that carbon material into the price. Not even really marking that up on my knowledge. So that's cool. There's a bunch of different cool versions, which is great. I'm a big fan of Mars Valley and Purple Haze, so I think those are good options. And it looks like there are some Stonewash tie ones back in stock, which is really cool. And then here's the pouch, the All Good pouch. Okay, that's cool. I like that name. I'm not sure. Are they black and white, or is that like a sold out line? No Velcro. So it's just trying to tell you there's no Velcro. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I like the Velcro, but I also think no Velcro would look dope too. So he also has a lot of cool patches, I noticed. I was looking through these the other day. I really like this one. It looks like a cassette. He's got Run EDC. That's pretty funny. He's got a cart sniped one. I thought this was dope. It's a cart sniped with a tombstone. I'm not a big patch guy, so I'd never seen them before. And then he's got crock bits. There's little things you can put in crocks. I only know those because of my kid, and he's got all those as well. It looks like he's got some reviews as well. There's a Woobin X3 flashlight review. So, bunch of stuff going on at Notorious EDC. Tom's a good dude. So, that's it. The Kingpin's awesome. Those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think down below. I would love to hear about it. If you guys have any questions, let me know down there as well. And I love you guys. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will catch you later.